We live in an unprecedentedly absurd time. Our planet is warming and yet we burn more oil. The economy has recovered, though the wealth gap continues to widen. People are starving while others throw out food, and still others are losing the food they ate at 7-Eleven, and technology encroaches more on our personhood each day. What once could be called the rhythms of life are now more akin to the incessant hum of electronic stimulation. This is certainly a jamble of a time, one within which we might hope for journalism to work as a countering force to the cyclone that is American society. But dominant discourses in media and politics turn more hot air now than ever before.
Water that comes out of your faucet. Did you know that there could be stuff in there that could harm or even kill your kids?
Are your kids being brainwashed? I'll tell you who's taking cues from the Nazis.
Far left does not want the USA to defeat terrorism.
The Republicans want you to die quickly if you get sick.
The left believes Americans are stupid.
Republicans lie.
You cannot be a liberal and a Christian. We have a village idiot in this country. It's called fundamentalist Christianity.
Islam is a lie from the pit of hell. Superbug.
There is a gay and secular fascism in this country.
The Tea Partiers are misguided.
I think they're racist.
Gosh, we better wake up soon. Or we're gonna wake up dead.
This state of affairs is why satirical news shows like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert's, whose programs centered around skewering media hypocrisy and sensationalism, were voted the most trusted news sources of the new millennium. However, with the last midterm elections having the lowest voter turnout rate since the beginning of World War II and record numbers of citizens reporting that they feel unsatisfied with candidates put forth by our two-party system, it is clear that our democracy is in need of some repair. So, as Stewart and Colbert leave their posts and we wonder who next will attempt to take on the 24-hour political pundit perpetual panic conflictinator, a term coined by Stewart, it is an opportune time to question how effective the satirical news format is at informing the public about current events. The structure of the satirical news program is made up of two key components. The first is the news element. The host introduces a story trending in the news, usually offering a brief summary and/or playing a relevant video clip. It is important to note that the news summary the host tells is organized mainly according to what is necessary to set up an ensuing joke. So here already we have a point where the show is emphasizing comedy over clarity. But, being charitable here, we can assume that the majority of stories they summarize fairly accurately. If they aren't summarized accurately, and stories on these programs are introduced through selective facts, it is problematic that so many people get their news from them and consider them their most trusted sources. While reporting bias can be problematic, it is very common. So, to understand what separates these shows from mainstream news shows, we move to their second and most prominent structural component, their use of satire. The host always responds to the story they've set up with a joke of some kind. Their inflections vary, but more often than not, the joke is some kind of witty comment or parodic comparison meant to point out an absurd or overblown characteristic of the story under examination or the way traditional media sources reported on it. Frequently, the hosts utilize a technique for comedic delivery known as deadpan, saying with a straight face something meant to come across as ridiculous. Ideally, the viewer recognizes the presence of the dissonance created in deadpan delivery, and they receive satire. Simon Critchley believes the act of joking requires agreement between both parties to send and receive a joke. He likens it to a ball thrown from one person to another. The person who receives the ball has to catch it, like the viewer must listen to the satirist, and must throw the ball back for the game to be successful, just as the viewer must understand the dissonance between what is said and what is reasonable to think to understand the satirist. In that ritual of social agreement, there is the chance that one will not see through the host's deadpan delivery and thus not get the message implied by the satire. They will, in effect, catch the ball and put it in their pocket. Such miscommunication is most easily visible in the uncompromising satire that Stephen Colbert played for so long. Colbert is an exceptional comedic actor. His ability to embody his character regardless of circumstances is unparalleled and has in the past allowed him to achieve some incredible feats of satire, like the time he derided President Bush at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
To sit here at the same table with my hero, George W. Bush, to be this close to the man, I feel like I'm dreaming. Somebody pinch me. You know what? I'm a pretty sound sleeper. That may not be enough. Somebody shoot me in the face.
When he testified before Congress.
I'm not a fan of the government doing anything. But I've got to ask, why isn't the government doing anything? Maybe this ag jobs bill would help. I don't know. Like most members of Congress, I haven't read it.
Briefly ran for president and formed his own political action group, Colbert Super PAC.
On January 21st, vote Herman Cain.
Colbert's style of extreme comparative satire lends itself to what's known in sociology as biased processing, a problem that can occur when the same set of information is ambiguous enough to allow multiple interpretations. In Colbert's case, his lines got processed differently by conservatives than by liberals. In 2013, Heather Lamar, Kristen Landreville, and Michael Beam, three social scientists at Ohio State University, studied this phenomenon as it pertains to the Colbert Report by showing clips of the show to 332 people who identified their party affiliation, or lack thereof, beforehand. They found that individual-level political ideology significantly predicted perceptions of Colbert's political ideology. Additionally, there was no significant difference between the groups in thinking Colbert was funny, but conservatives were more likely to report that Colbert only pretends to be joking and genuinely meant what he said, while liberals were more likely to report that Colbert used satire and was not serious when offering political statements. This means that as much as one might gawk at the prospect of Colbert's progressive undertones going unnoticed, his uncompromising character acting can in fact make his message hard enough to decode that it ends up processed according to the audience's established biases, in effect reinforcing their own belief system rather than promoting dialogue, which is the defined goal of satire. It is harder to imagine this study would yield the same sort of result were its subject The Daily Show. Though, while Stewart's political leanings are less ambiguous than Colbert's, he often shies away from firm political statements himself, which brings us back to ethics and the relative insanity of our time. Both Stewart and Colbert have claimed time and time again that they see themselves primarily as comedians.
You said you can't laugh and be afraid at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That's not a philosophical statement. I think it's a physiological statement. When you laugh, you're not afraid. And sometimes you laugh because you're afraid, but when you laugh, the laughter goes away. And it's not just whistling past the graveyard. It actually just goes away when you're laughing. And that's why I don't think I could ever stop doing what I'm doing, because I laugh all day long. And if I didn't, I would just cry all day long.
However, their unexpected ascendance to news cycle dominance forces us to question if their brands of satire contribute to cynicism and its accompanying lack of participation in cultural discourse, or that they primarily succeed in informing people about the current state of affairs while they laugh. An important piece of evidence for me is John Oliver's relatively new show Last Week Tonight on HBO, which seems to have better infused clear progressivism and more powerfully mobilized people while still retaining its humor. So perhaps there lies the blueprint for a more thoroughly positive satirical news format to promote. And yet, laughter, it can be argued, is always of great importance to our culture as well as to our very state of existence. And Stewart and Colbert surely cultivated some significant cultural discussions during their runs on cable news. So it is hard to answer these questions of style definitively. What do you think? Should satirical news be obligated to promote participation in a rich discourse around media, politics, and other aspects of culture? And if so, should its purveyors attempt to incorporate clear messages into their programs? Should we just accept this as the inevitable future of news?
Whatever they are, they're fast.
Yeah, they are fast. I mean, so far we haven't seen anybody that could even potentially keep up with them. But I don't know. I've seen that guy in the vest 2 or 3 times, and there's that. Is that same white work truck that we've seen before? I mean, you can see how the larger llama has her leash, or his leash, still on him. And this is hilarious. Watch this. These people think they can.
And it's funny reading the comments and seeing how people are speaking on behalf of the llamas. For example, Rachel saying that one is saying, "Llama bro, didn't we just come this way?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, but we didn't."